Okay, hello everybody, and welcome to tonight's webinar class on good routines for health. So tonight we're going to be talking about how good routines impact your health. And my name is Anna Laura Brown, and my company is called Autoimmune Rehab, LLC, based after the title of my podcast, Autoimmune Rehab. So, a little bit about me. I have a health coaching certification from what is known as IIN, otherwise known as the Institute of Integrative Nutrition. This is an online health coaching training program that certifies health coaches. I got that certification in 2015, and I have also been an essential oils coach ever since 2011. And you need to go. Yes. Deal with something with the recording here. I don't know why we're having an issue here. Just a second here. Yes, I want to approve. Okay, so now let me go back to the slides there. Okay. Yes, so I have also been an essential oils coach since 2011. And I got diagnosed with Hashimoto's in 2018. So that was what started my journey to healing from autoimmune and to learning all about the world of autoimmune and some of the different things that can impact your health and well-being. And I am also a host of the podcast entitled Autoimmune Rehab. I started that in 2022, and on there I do a combination of solo episodes where I talk about different topics related to autoimmune healing and well-being, and interviews with people sharing their stories of journeys of and their journeys of healing from an autoimmune condition. So more than likely, a lot of you watching this have autoimmune conditions because that's typically who my audience is. But even if you don't, you'll want to keep watching because you'll learn some really helpful things about how to have healthy, successful morning and evening routines, whether you have an autoimmune condition or not. But just know that this is written from the perspective of somebody who has been on this autoimmune healing journey for several years now and who works primarily with people who do. And so that's just a little bit about me and my background and where I come from. Okay, so why do routines in general matter? So this is something that people sometimes wonder. They wonder, why is it really that important to have a routine or multiple routines, I would say, because I always advocate for having a morning routine, having an evening routine, and then having, maybe routines that you stick to when you're traveling, when you are doing things that are not part of your normal regular set schedule. So, the first reason why routines matter so much is that our bodies thrive on consistency. And so, you're going to have a lot better health and be a healthier human and a healthier person if you are sticking to consistency. And having a routine is part of what helps create that consistency. And routines also help reduce stress and increase your energy level. So if you are sticking to normal routines, you're going to have less stress, your body's going to know what to expect at all times, and you're just going to have more energy because you are thriving off of normal routines and normal rituals. And healthy habits become easier with repetition. If you, whether or not, if you have read the book that became super popular a couple years ago called Atomic Habits. You will know a lot more about this. And if you haven't read that book, it's one of the books that I highly recommend that you do read, is all about the importance of habits and the impact that those have on our lives. And creating a routine is also going to create healthy habits. And so those become easier as you repeat them over and over again. So here is some information about some science behind routines. So the first thing to think about is that routines regulate your circadian rhythm. And what exactly is a circadian rhythm? Or circadian rhythm is your sleep-wake cycle. So that is what impacts your body as you go to sleep, as you wake, that kind of thing. And routines help to regulate that. Also, they help improve your mental health by reducing decision fatigue. So if you actually have a set routine, your body's not constantly trying to decide, oh, should I do this? Should I do that? What time do I do this? What time do I do that at? You've already got a routine established, and therefore you don't have that decision fatigue. And habits create structure and increase your chances of success with your health goals. So the more you have that structure and those routines, the more likely you are to be successful with any kind of a health or wellness related goal that you create for yourself. So, what are the key components of a healthy routine? So, these are a couple of key components, and then we'll talk a little bit more about what I do for my morning and evening routines and what kinds of things I recommend. So, the first key component of a healthy routine is morning rituals, for example, include things like hydration, so that's drinking water, sunlight, getting outside and getting some sun, mindfulness, things like meditation, prayer, different things like that. Nutrition habits, meal prep, and balanced meals, making sure that you always eat breakfast. I'm a big advocate of telling people that they should eat breakfast, especially if you have an autoimmune condition. It's even more important that you don't just skip breakfast and decide to just not eat. Also, movement, so daily physical activity. And I'm a big fan of telling people that they should move for at least 20 minutes during the first hour that they're out of bed. And people sometimes give me some grief over that and say they don't think they can handle that, but I tell you, it will make a big difference in your life and your energy level if you are able to do that and if you do that. Then also practicing good sleep hygiene. So making sure that you actually have good sleep habits and a good sleep routine and stress management practices. So in other words, knowing how to manage your overall stress is a good portion of a healthy routine as well. So, what are some morning routines that can boost good health? So, the first thing is waking up at the same time each day. So, I do advocate for using an alarm clock to make sure that you are waking up at the same time each day and that you avoid pushing the snooze button. And even if you are, one of those people that maybe doesn't absolutely have to get up at the same time each day for the benefit of your own health, I always feel like it's a good idea to do that anyway. And on the weekends, I typically will sleep in a little bit, but I really don't sleep in that much because I really advocate for trying to get up around the same time. Then drink a glass of water first. So that is one of the very first things I do when I get out of bed is I drink a glass of water. Then get outside in natural light. Now, I don't get outside in natural light immediately after waking up because, I kind of like to get dressed and do some movement, a few other things. And depending on the season of the year, the biggest challenge can be sometimes there almost isn't always natural light when I get up because I actually get up normally speaking at 5:30 in the morning. And I know some of you are also going to be gasping at that, but I do. And so at 5:30 a.m., there isn't always natural light available outside. But I do go outside and get some of that natural light as soon as I can get it. And, definitely no later than about 9 a.m. or so, I will step outside for at least a few minutes. And then do 5 to 10 minutes of stretching or deep breathing. This is really, really important. And if you have ever noticed what dogs or cats do first thing in the morning after they've been sleeping all night, you notice that they get out of bed and they start stretching around. So, we need to follow the example of our pets and realize that there's a reason why they get out of bed and start stretching is because they need to get that movement going and that blood flowing in the circulation, and so do we. And so this is another thing that I do almost immediately when getting out of bed is the stretching. We'll do some deep breathing and do at least 20 minutes of exercise. So I already mentioned that before. I like to rotate between either going for a walk, going to the gym and going swimming, or doing, some kind of weightlifting or dance exercise, things like that. I have quite a few different tools in my home for exercise and things like that. Stationary bike riding can be a good one as well. You really have to get that blood flowing and get moving. And even if you wake up feeling a little bit tired, it's really important to do that and eat a nourishing breakfast. That said, I do also do somewhat of intermittent fasting in the sense that I try to have all of my dinner consumed by no later than 6 p.m. And then I generally don't start put any food in my mouth before about 8 a.m. So, I do advocate for eating breakfast, but I also advocate for not having that be the very first thing you do when you first get out of bed. So some of these other things, drinking the water first, getting outside, doing the stretching and the exercise, those things should all happen before you eat anything. And nutrition habits. So these are part of good, healthy habits and routines that can help you to improve what you consume. And ultimately, I do really believe that for the most part, food is medicine, so that can really impact your overall health and well-being, is to plan meals ahead to avoid last-minute unhealthy choices. And this is a real key one because the reality is that if you don't plan meals ahead, you are going to be more inclined to getting out DoorDash, going to fast food, eating things, that really aren't that great for you because you didn't plan ahead and have a menu of exactly what you were going to eat and when you were going to eat it. You also want to prioritize whole foods and minimize processed snacks. Personally, I'm a really big fan, especially if you have autoimmune conditions, of giving up gluten, dairy, and sugar. I consider those to be the three devils, which I know some people and nearly all people, in my opinion, that have autoimmune conditions should be off those. And really, they're not the greatest food for anybody, even if you don't have an autoimmune condition. And I know some people give me slack for that, but the reality is that those foods really do create a lot of inflammation in the body and can increase pain and cause all kinds of other issues. And so, that's just that. I also try to prioritize making meals that contain of what I call only single ingredient foods. So what that means is literally what it means that the only label that might be on a package is if it happens to be something like a canned green beans or frozen broccoli that's in a package, or things that are very minimal. So for example, I like turkey burgers a lot, but I buy the ones at Trader Joe's because they literally, the ingredients say turkey, salt, and rosemary, and that's it. In other words, there's no added oils or other processed things or anything else. And so I'm really, really picky about what I buy, and most of my food are literally things that don't have any kind of a label because it's literally fruits and vegetables, or chicken thighs or salmon, that kind of thing. Okay, and then stay hydrated throughout the day. So this is a really must too. I find that sometimes I'm starting to feel a little bit tired, groggy. The first thing that I need to do is to drink some more water because that can be a big sign that I potentially haven't had enough water. And water can actually be a big energy booster. It can actually also help you feel full faster and make you less inclined to eat unhealthy foods if you just drink a big glass of water first and start realizing that, oh, wait a minute, maybe I just haven't had enough water. And practice mindful eating. So slow down and chew thoroughly. It can also help to look at your food and, be grateful for your food. If you're a praying person, consider that. But just kind of don't just take your food and just start chowing down really, really fast. Just, try to see if you can just be mindful about what you're eating. Also, intuitive eating a little bit can help as well. So, in other words, really paying attention to what your body really wants to eat and what your body feels like you need to eat and what is really good for you, not just whatever you happen to have around the house. Okay, so movement and exercise. So, like I said before, 20 to 30 minutes of movement. Daily, I like to do even a little more than this. I like to do 20 to 30 minutes of movement in the morning and then 20 to 30 minutes of movement again within, probably ideally about an hour to an hour and a half before I go to bed. I don't find it a good idea to do a lot of exercise right before bed because that can actually make it harder for you to wind down and go to sleep. Also, is helpful to mixing it up. So, do walking, yoga, strength training, dancing, swimming, all different kinds of exercise can be really helpful, lifting weights. Also, creating a consistent time slot and make it non-negotiable. So for me, my exercise, for the most part, I do it first thing in the morning when I get up. So typically I'm exercising between, like I said, I get up at 5:30 in the morning. I typically start my exercise between 5:45 and 6. And go to around 6:30 or so, and then I also exercise in the evening. Typically, it's going to vary a little bit. Normally speaking, I might even already be exercising right now, but since I'm doing this class, I'm actually going to be going swimming in my outdoor pool after this class is over. You get the idea. Make sure that I'm through with my evening exercise at least an hour and a half before I go to bed. And I typically go to bed between 9:30 and 10. So that way I get about 7.5 to 8 hours of sleep a night. And listen to your body and rest when needed. So this is another really, really important one. And especially if you do have an autoimmune condition, you may have to take a little bit of a break from the movement. You may have to do, say maybe only 10 minutes in the morning and that kind of thing. But it really listen to your body and take a rest, but know that you also should be exercising and moving and at minimum be doing some stretching when you first get up in the morning, even if maybe you're having a day when you just don't feel like you can do a full 30-minute weightlifting workout or swim or that kind of thing. So here are some helpful sleep routines that I find can be really helpful. It can be helpful to go to bed and wake up at the same time daily. So I mentioned that already a little bit earlier, but I do use an alarm clock to wake up in the morning, and I do strive to go to bed around within 15 to 20 minutes of around the same time every night. Also limit screens 1 hour before bed. So this can really, really help you wind down. I also find that it's really good to avoid keeping uh, a cell phone turned on and within reach from the bed, that kind of thing. You don't want to have a TV right near your bed, or ideally, maybe even not in your bedroom if at all possible. You want to create a relaxing wind down routine. So, develop an actual routine to help you wind down and prepare yourself for sleep at night. And you want to keep your bedroom cool, dark, and quiet. This can be really essential for helping you to be able to sleep well. And use essential oils to help with better sleep. Lavender, marjoram, Roman chamomile, those are going to be some of the better ones. And if you want to talk more about that in detail, we can do that. But those are just some of the ones. And I like to do things like applying a few drops to the bottom of my feet, putting some in with some water into a spray bottle. You can spritz your pillow, that kind of thing, are some of the strategies I like to use essential oils as a tool to help me get better sleep. So, a couple of other things to think about. So, stress and emotional well-being. So, you keeping a daily journaling or gratitude practice can be a really, really good idea. And you can do this with just a plain pen and paper or notebook, or you can get something a little bit fancier. You can use something that has different kinds of questions to ask you to guide your journaling. And typically, what I like to do is to write down at least 3 or 4 things that I'm thankful for, or and maybe possibly goals that I plan on achieving, or different answers to different questions, things that I'm looking forward to, things that, I might feel like might be a little bit challenging coming up and why, and, just different things like that. You can also write down different affirmations, things like that. But I feel like that's a really good idea to do that. And sometimes I'll do it in the morning, and sometimes I do it as part of my evening routine right before I go to bed. And so any kind of meditation or prayer can also be useful for your stress and emotional well-being. Limit multitasking. So in other words, strive to avoid doing too many things at once if you can, and schedule time for rest and fun. So, we don't want to always be on the go, 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 always stressed out, and never taking any time to ever have any kind of rest and fun for ourselves. So here are a couple of tips for sticking to a routine, because the reality is it's one thing to create a routine, but then it's another thing to actually stick to that routine and help it actually improve your overall health and well-being. So the first thing is to start small with one habit at a time. The second thing is to track your progress. And this is something else that you can also do in a journal. So you can also create like a tracker for you to check off a box, or, take some kind of another action every day to track the progress that you're making with your routines. Set reminders or alarms. So in today's day and age, setting a reminder or alarm is actually a really easy thing to do, a lot easier than it used to be, because you can actually even set multiple reminders or alarms on your phone for different things can make that really easy. I also have an alert that's connected to my Aura Ring, so that's like a health and well-being tracker ring that I have with an app that will actually alert me if I've been sitting down for more than about 30 minutes. It will automatically ding that says, "Hey, you need to move, you need to get up, you need to stretch, you've been sitting down too long." So, you can decide what kinds of alarm reminders and alarms you want to set. You probably don't want to set too many because they might drive you crazy, but just a few key ones might be helpful. Then celebrate your wins. So, think about when you are achieving progress towards your goals, when you've set and stuck to your routine for, a certain number of days. Think about what you want to do to celebrate your win and have, of course, that win be something that is directly, related to improving your health and well-being. In other words, you don't want to do something that's going to completely derail your entire goals, that kind of thing. Be kind to yourself when you slip up. So, if you are, for example, committed to gluten-free, dairy-free, and sugar-free, but then you sneak some sugar, acknowledge that that's okay, that happens. If you have a situation where, you don't do any exercise for a couple days in a row, move on and realize that, that happens too. But, try to stick to your routine as much as you possibly can. So, here are a couple of things that you will see that will happen in your life when you actually stick to healthy routines. First thing is you'll have better sleep. And I know for a lot of us in the autoimmune community, this can be a real challenge. But yeah, I promise when you stick to a healthy routine, you will have better sleep. You'll have more energy and focus, which is another challenge a lot of us have. You'll have improved digestion. You'll have a stronger immune system. And you'll have a happier mood and have less anxiety. And I don't know about you, but these reasons right then and there give me really good motivation and reason to stick to my healthy routine because these are all things that I know that I really need and things that I experience most of these most of the time. I actually have to say I'm blessed now to have pretty good sleep. I have pretty good energy and focus. My digestion's pretty good. I have a pretty strong immune system. I don't get sick very much. And I'm pretty happy and don't have a whole lot of anxiety. But there are times in my life, back to maybe even prior to my Hashimoto's diagnosis, and even in the few years after that, when I really struggled with a lot of these things. And so, I can definitely tell you that by sticking to a healthy routine, I have really experienced the benefits of having a lot of these things and seeing a lot of these things really improve. So, the next steps, what should you be doing? So, the first thing I recommend is that you choose one area to start, whether that's your sleep, your food, or your movement, and set a small specific goal for the week and decide, what is my goal actually going to be? And reflect daily what helped or got in the way. And build gradually because this is a lifestyle, not a quick fix. Especially if you are in a situation where you haven't been sticking to a good, healthy morning and evening routine, then you may have to take more baby steps to be able to eventually get there than somebody who maybe is more or less living and following a healthy routine. So let's thrive together. These are, if you want some help creating a healthy routine, you can book a free autoimmune wellness consultation. You can go to my website there to annalaurabrown.com and you will see it on there along with a lot of other content. Also, you can check out my membership, which is essentialwellnesscircle.com. The way I do that is I actually require you to be purchasing some specific kinds of supplements and essential oils every month. And as long as you purchase those every month and consume them and use them, then you are eligible to be a member of my health coaching membership for free that comes along with the purchase of the supplements. So those are some of the ways to work with me and to learn more. And hopefully you found this helpful. And for those of you that are live, I'm actually going to stop the sharing and the recording, and we'll see if anybody has any questions that they want to ask.